Hello, wonderful people. Oh, Flea and I are so excited to be back for another beautiful episode of Age of Awæcnian, Soulful Stories Unveiled. And if you haven't met us before, I am Marie and this is beautiful Flea. Oh, how are you feeling, Flea?
I'm feeling excited, but at the same time frustrated with technology. That's about my sum. It's like this lovely balance of parallel. It's like, yeah, yeah, okay. we'll we'll just do what we can do, and that's all there
Yeah,
is. So yeah,
that's it. I feel ya.
definitely.
And oh, look, we've had so many people like, I don't know how you do it, don't know how you're doing it all. And I'm like, yeah, I don't know how Flea's doing it all because you're doing all the little things. It's a pretty big mission, but I think once we tame the tech, we were talking about taming parts of ourselves yesterday, then anything's possible. And I pulled this card before, like literally before we jumped on, and it's possibilities. And I know, Flea, you're always like, your endless possibilities, anything is possible. And I love that. Um,
Mhm.
yeah, I just love all the color in there and all the sea creatures. And we just spoke with our beautiful guest before about going with the flow. This piece about possibilities. What is it about that you're just like, okay, this is a driving force. This is just something that just like, what's about that word possibilities or the feeling?
I actually like it more for the opposing version, which is the impossibilities. This was one of the first words of my awakening that I just went, okay, well, it's impossible. It's impossible to do all of these things, to think all of these things, to shift your mindset, to come out of, the 3D world and all that is. And when I looked at the word, and if you go into the definition and really like drive it home, it doesn't exist. The word in itself, because of the fact that possibilities do exist and because we exist, there is no such thing as impossible. And with that, it really just brought in this awareness that everything is possible. And as a young child, I was very much in that mindset of, I can be anything, I can do anything. Movies are real, dragons are real, mermaids are real. All these things are real because somebody has to have thought of them first. And if somebody has thought of them, that means they exist because we cannot create something out of nothing. And even the pure consciousness of our physical being, that thought that we have, is that impossibility or the possibility. So I
Yeah.
love the fact that it is a play on words and everything is possible.
Oh, I love that. And our next guest, beautiful Sarah Lloyd, joining us from the UK. I was putting an accent on then. From the UK, also has very similar beliefs and values about like anything is possible. And I've seen her in the short amount of time that I've known her do amazing things. And we're so excited to be chatting with beautiful Sarah, who has done such phenomenal things, even in like the last, I suppose 6 months of getting to know her on the Women Thrive Summit. And I just loved her energy. I loved her passion. And, She's also the business owner and the founder of Indigo Soul PR. And she's a PR expert, but she's also an author, a radio presenter, energy healer, mum and wife, all of the good things and the creative things. So welcoming Sarah on with us, and so excited to be diving deep in flow in conversation. Hi, Sarah. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. It's so lovely to be here, and I'm just lovely to be in your energy. It's just been such a journey, and it's funny you just to take where you were going with the impossibility and the impossible. I saw Liz Gilbert, um,
Mm.
the writer of Eat, Pray, Love, earlier this week, and just to sort of speak into that whole thing around this. She's got this revolution of relaxed women, and I was kind of, you're just sitting there going, how do you become a relaxed woman in today's society? Like, we've got children, we've got all the things that we're worrying about. And what she was saying is it's boundaries, priorities, and the mysticism, and that then plays into what you were just speaking into, which is the impossibility, the fact that magic exists, the fact that the we must have created this in some way. And I just love that. I just wanted to kind of lean into that line of inquiry that you just started. And so lovely to see your daughter as well.
Look, all
I
the
love
mum.
that. And the first card that came out this morning was the psychic development card. So I knew that this was going to be a really interesting conversation. It's like, yes, this is my type of conversation, all around the weirdness and the wackiness. So I love that this is the way it's going.
Oh,
So amazing.
yeah.
Yeah.
And of course, beautiful eye. I love
Oh,
it.
I always, because it's morning here in Australia, so I'm like, oh, she's either going to sleep in or she's going to wake up. And she always loves to come in for a cuddle and say hello too.
I
But
love that.
yeah, it's so yummy when we can just allow ourselves to come back in to finding out more about who we are. And Sarah, on your journey, you know what was, I suppose, a time for you that really, I suppose, awakened you or opened you up to like questioning, like, oh, is there more to this? Or have you always been quite an intuitive person? Was there a moment, earlier in life that was like awakening, or like I needed like dive deeper or change paths? Like, I'd love for you to share.
I was always quite a sensitive child anyway, and like deeply sensitive, and playing with crystals and making fairies. And I was very much into the magic of childhood. And I became a dancer, and embodied that in showing up as fairies in tutus on stage and stuff. But I think as I got older, I just got more skeptical, and I kind of shut it down. And I think that's
Mm,
definitely something that I found happens to quite a lot of us. We kind of get to our teens, and it's like not cool anymore to like Clanad and all the mystical things that we imagine as children. And so I shut it all down. I got to my 20s. It was actually my children that kind of led to my awakening, in the fact that I had my daughter, and just before she came along, I was kind of drawn. I wanted to try and connect back into natural reflexology and crystal healing. And I was kind of enjoying pampering myself just before she came along. And I thought, oh, I'll reskill. Maybe that's what I'm supposed to do, because I was working in PR. I didn't really
mm,
know what I wanted to do, but I was kind of playing with the ideas of finding a different path. And the worst bit was, is like, I started doing reflexology, but I don't like feet. So I kind of talked myself out of it, and then I fell pregnant. And that, like, the whole like aromatherapy, you could only use certain oils and things like that. And I was like, well, maybe that's not my thing. So I had my daughter, and I had this moment when, and I mean, mums will know this, but I was completely sleep deprived at one point. The fact that she wouldn't sleep, she was very much an on-demand feeder, and there was one particular night where I was so exhausted. I just remember laying in bed and just having this moment where my whole body froze, and this, what felt like a massive big grey angel, just arrived and just surrounded me with wings. And I just, I couldn't, I mean, my brain was trying to tell me, oh, it's sleep paralysis. It's like there was this rational line of thought, but then there was this other part of me that's like, there's an angel here, and I'm like wrapped in his wings, and he's protecting me. And I mean, he's never come back, but so I had little moments of like little tiny glimmers of connecting to something bigger than myself. And then when I had my second daughter, I had severe postnatal depression, and my friend said, go and see an energy healer. Go and, you've tried the traditional route. I was on the, doing cognitive therapy. I was taking antidepressants and basically trying to exist as if I didn't have children. I think that there's this whole thing like, oh, I'm not going to embrace this. I'm just going to pretend like they don't exist, put them into nursery and carry on as I am, and basically burnt myself to a crisp in the process. And I went to this vortex healer, and she basically told me that Archangel Michael was in the room, and he was strongly telling me to learn how to manage my energy. So that path, we cleared lots of ancestral, because postnatal depression ran in our family. We cleared a lot of the kind of the energy that I'd been carrying, and then it just led me to this point of, well, there's definitely something more here. And that then led to even more mini kind of awakenings. I had lots of little moments where I would see things out of the corner of my eye. I'd kind of retrained in reading, or I mean, if you can even train to be a psychic, I just basically started to tune into my intuition and not second guessing it anymore. And I think that path has been developing even more over the last 7 years. And what's beautiful is I get to, in my PR business, is work with psychics and help them tell their stories. So I'm always learning by the people that I'm surrounded by. So it's such a beautiful exchange. And I will draw breath now.
Wow. Oh, Sarah, I haven't heard this side of the depth of your story. Sometimes in certain spaces, we share what other people need to hear. But when you said that beautiful grey angel just protecting you, I just had goosebumps, and then Aya walked in. It's like our angels and our guides are with us. Like, we have such a team, and it's felt. It is so felt. And when in those darkest moments when we feel alone, you do feel them and hear them, and just visions, they're just there reminding you and reminding us that we are so loved. And I know even in that motherhood journey, and I know Flea's got two older adult children now, but that feeling of like aloneness, and like you're doing it by yourself, and just sometimes can be very numbing. And like it's a very rewarding job, but it's also like you feel, even though there's like half the world of half the world of women, and there are so many mums around the world, we still feel so alone and disconnected. And those pieces of anxiety, depression, can really anchor and weigh us down. And I know, like, I go to Flea also is, got her beautiful experiences as well. And she sees me working with Aya and my own family, and I like go to her for advice at times as well. And it's like, yeah, it's hard sometimes.
And I'd also like to just point out for those people at home that are like rediscovering themselves, a lot of the time, like I know for myself personally that I tried to fit in. It's like I knew I was a weird kid. I knew that I could feel and see things differently to other people. And it was like my entire life, it's like, okay, I can just keep trying. I can keep doing the things and be normal in that sense. And it was the catalyst of having children. And I guess sitting there going, there has to be more. It's like, what is my purpose? You know, this doesn't feel right. Like, I'm not just a mum. Like, yes, I am, but also wanting to show them and provide them with opportunities where they could be all they could be. Like, they're beautiful, imaginative, lovely women now that, you know, I feel that society has put a damper on that ability to actually connect with themselves. And, you know, for the angels and things like that, it may not present as an angel for you. It could just present as a light
Yeah.
and a feeling of just like, okay, I know there is more. And you don't have to always see things to actually know that there is more. Like, all you have to do is go, okay, well, I exist. And for most people, it's the chatter inside your head. And it's like, okay, who am I actually talking to? If I'm inside my head, why am I not just talking to myself? Like, the conversations that we have in our mind are to something else. And it's that something else that is your guides in your spirit family, or whatever you want to call them, or however you're willing to accept them, is how they're going to show up. So for those people that are like just, oh, angels and stuff, that's all hogwash. Maybe for you, they're not presenting as angels. Maybe for you, they're just presenting as comfort, as security, as, you know, the little, oh, thank goodness that actually popped up at the right time, or, you know, I've got the right people in my family, in my environment. Like, it doesn't have to look the same way. And there goes my voice.
Yeah. If I'd just like to just tap into that is, though, I mean, I did have a story that Marie's heard around. I was at a crossroads in my life. It was kind of around the time my girls were still very young, and I had been given the option to take voluntary redundancy or step into a role in the same business, but in a completely different space. And what it was is we were in Las Vegas on our honeymoon slash 40th birthday. So I feel like again, it's like that you get to your 40s and that's when it all starts to kind of happen. And I remember that the helicopter pilot was my angel. He basically told me his story, which had been that he'd always dreamed to be a helicopter pilot. And he was in his sort of 60s. And he just said, "Do you think I've been doing this forever?" And I was like, "Well, I hope so. We're in the Grand Canyon, man." And he was like, "Well, no. I only started flying helicopters in my like mid 40s because I changed my stars." And it was at that point I was like, right, okay, so this is a message I'm being told by this earth angel that I can follow the leap of faith. I can take. And I think that's the other thing. Like when I went on this big spiritual awakening after my kids were born, I was on retreat, and you hear a song or you see a sign that says you're going the wrong way, or, it's really blatant if you just pay attention. That's what I love about that. It's like, oh, I'm looking for a sign, but there's one right in front of you. Your technology's not working. We're not supposed to have this conversation or whatever. So you know what I mean, though, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, those signs and symbols are like so synchronistic when you start to be aware. You know, numbers, like you said, songs. My angels sing to me a lot, and there'll be songs that pop into my head, or there'll be something on the radio, and I'm feeling something. So they know it taps into my feeling senses. And because of the artistic nature of me being a dancer, doing musicals, there'll be lots of musical songs that'll pop into my mind. I'm like, why am I thinking this? Just to like shift the vibe, or get me to laugh about something, or bring that lightheartedness. And yeah, and it wasn't only like, for me, a lot of the deeper awakening pieces happened for me during my miscarriages as well, or after that, of going within, coming back to the body, questioning more. And I think we as women, as mums, are so hard on ourselves. And like you, I went down spirals of, anxiety, depression, darkness, not knowing who I was. But in that depth of it, I would come back into dancing. I would come back into getting back into my body. And then I'd have visions of like phoenixes rising out of the ashes, and like feeling this, like it's all going to be okay. And seeing more things in nature that got me to question, well, what is it in nature that is speaking to me now? Like numbers and songs that came very easily. But then I was also being able to sit and listen. And I find a lot of my angelic team talk to me through the animals as well. And so it's been a really beautiful process of looking at the symbols and meanings. And I know Flea is similar. She's I call her the numbers queen, because things come up and she'll like figure out the things. And how about you, Flea?
I actually had that happen this morning. So as we're preparing for this beautiful summit that starts tomorrow, um, I was making some tutorial videos at 4:54, and the video ended up being 4:54. And for me, that is all around foundational changes that create protection and stability. So the fours being that foundational stability, safety, everything in the root chakra, the five being that ultimate change. So if you're seeing fives, be prepared, things are going to shift. Doesn't matter if you're feeling like everything is great, sometimes things do need to change. And it could just be a mindset. So, that there was a very synchronous event that happened right as I was doing the things, feeling frustrated, going, more? Do I have to do more, really? And then it's like, actually, no, this is going to create that change, because now I have the video that I can pop in for the next summit and I don't need to worry about that. So that stability that was coming with the change of mindset, okay, yeah, I'm being reminded that these things are happening for a reason. And I wake up every morning, and the minute I walk out, I have 3 clocks that are all on different times. One of them is always a sequence of a 3-4-5 or a 4-5-6 every single morning without fail. And I'm like, okay, sequences is that production, it's the progression. And I'm like, okay, every morning I'm reminded you are progressing, you're on the right track. Sometimes they might be a little bit out of order, but once again, with your numbers, it's how you see it. So I can see it out of order, but in my mind straight away it's the order. And it's like, okay, so the order's there. I have to focus on the thing that's out. So it might be creativity. It might be the 4, which is the stability and that safety. And it's that deep understanding that actually allows me to create my own reality and give myself self counsel. It's like, it's really valuable to go, oh, okay, that's what that means. That's why I'm seeing it. Thank you for the reminder. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. I've had this conversation with my partner who doesn't believe in any of this stuff, and it's like, and he'll go, oh, look, numbers. And I was like, aha, told you. Once you see it, you can't unsee it, and they pop up. And it's once you believe and you can trust yourself, fully trust that, okay, this is what that means. And whether or not you want to see it as angels or spirit guides or whatever, it's like, well, why am I seeing it? And I am the why queen. So everything's like a why. Okay. If it's got to be spiritual, why? If it needs to be this type of word, why? And everything becomes this, okay, now I can move on from that because I have those answers. So don't let it pass. Ask yourself, why would I be seeing that? And what does it mean for me? And that's really powerful. I love numbers. The cards too. That one there was the ancient wisdom that we were talking about. And ancient wisdom is that connection to Mother Earth, to nature, to the animal wisdom, to all of the things that were done before. These are our tools for how we navigate today. It's like, look back at what was done, the progression that was ahead of their time, the information that they can gain from their environments and what's around them. These are so powerful. And that is that new beginning, the psychic development that we started at the beginning of this session. It's so wonderful to know that you have that power within you, and it's every single person. It is not limited to psychics or spiritual people or religious people. I try to avoid that as much as possible. It's like, no, I'm not spiritual. No, I don't believe in religion. I'm not talking about God. And it's like, no way. And now it's like, okay, there's this deeper understanding of what those things could be to me. And
Yeah.
once you know what they could be for you, then that awareness of, now I see the interpretations throughout the years. Every time the Bible is interpreted and changed in language, it's to create a bigger understanding or a definition that that person was feeling in that time. Every time we look at a text that's been altered or changed, movies, all of these things come in to show us exactly what is going through the human psyche. That's so powerful. So powerful.
And so, Sarah, working in an industry like Indigo Soul that taps into this wisdom, you're tapping into people that, are wanting to share their stories and show up for themselves, and you've tapped into your inner wisdom. What have you started, I suppose, noticing, in the world of the people that you work with, your world, when you fully like embraced this part of yourself, bringing it into your business, being able to speak openly about it? What have you noticed like shifting in your world when you fully like go, because most of us, we do get scared and we hide it at times. I know I did. I'm like, oh, do I talk about that? But then when you fully embrace it, there's more openings that happen. So what happened for you when you like fully like embrace that in your business and the people that now are in your field?
It was really interesting because I see, like, when I work with people in sharing their story or doing their PR, I started to notice the patterns. So like you, Flea, mine isn't numbers; it's patterns of stories, and like the unraveling.
Mm.
And watch, I love to watch the unraveling of people in a good way, of course, like, but like in a way that the story isn't controlling them anymore. It's like you say, there's a lot of people. Certainly about 5 years ago, I was 2 years into the business, and I was working with a mixture of mainstream but also and females in serious CEO roles, but also I was working with life coaches and healers. So I had like a real mixed bag when I started. And what I found is that the people that were hiding from, well, they were pretending, they were hiding from themselves, were the ones that I was feeling the brunt of. When, so for example, if they appeared in a piece of coverage and they didn't like how they were perceived, I was immediately scapegoated in the fact that, well, basically, because I'd enabled that piece of coverage to appear, those clients early on were super uncomfortable with what they were sharing. But often there was one particular one who was doing it under a pseudonym. So she was completely hiding. She was a tarot reader doing it in the back of a pub, under a assumed name. And I got her all the coverage you could possibly imagine, like everything she wanted. It arrived, but it because she was not telling herself the truth, it was coming out. It was almost mirroring back to her what needed to be healed. And I think I've certainly seen that evolution in clients, where the more comfortable they are with their warts, I call it warts and all. If you're happy with what's in your closet, and you can imagine the worst thing appearing in the newspaper, like, the worst headline, and you're okay with that headline, and everybody else that could potentially be affected around you is okay with that headline, then actually everything's going to be okay. It doesn't. You just let go of that story, and it's almost like letting go of stories on, in real time. And what I've
Mm.
also found is the evolution of clients has been, the more evolved I've become in my own emotional, spiritual journey, the more the deeper my clients are, if that makes sense. So like they were very scratch the surface. I'm a Reiki healer and that's kind of what I do. But now I'm having the really deep conversations around how they show up and how that is what is meaningful, and they understand the ebb and flow of energy. So I'm not getting clients that are saying I need coverage and I need it today. It's kind of, well, it will land when it's supposed to. I mean, it's not like I sit there and not do anything, but it's working with the energy of the universe and what is meant for that person and divine timing and all of those things. And I think that's what's really interesting. Like you were saying, I had an opportunity where, and I mean, I walk my talk as well. So what I always do for my clients, I've put myself in that situation. So I feel like I've had this major experience around telling my story. It's in summits so that I can then share that with clients in the future that want to be seen on stages, that want to feel comfortable and not uncomfortable with their story, and can show up in their true authentic self. And even presenting on summits, I don't turn up and do it in a nice shiny polished way, because that's just not me. Unfortunately, I feel like it's important to embody yourself and your energy and the way that you are, and like trying to be something that you're not. I think that's one thing that I'm definitely learning along the way, that you as long as you're covering what needs to be shared, it's doesn't matter, just show up as you. Anyway, that was a bit of an extra bit. But the other thing as well
I
was,
love that.
yeah, like you don't have, it doesn't have to be perfect. I think that there's this whole, like, I don't know, I mean, even looking at social media, and like there is an element of, yes, showing up and having a beautiful personal brand, but it doesn't matter if you don't. And like I think that's when we fall into the trap of becoming mainstream. I don't know, it's, anyway, I'm going off on a tangent a little bit here, but I
It's
think it's
trying too
just,
hard.
yeah, I feel like it's just people
Yeah.
are evolving. I mean, I had a piece of coverage in a major magazine here where the headline was, I've got a dirty secret. And there was three of us, and the my secret was I hugged trees and spoke to angels and read tarot cards and played with crystals, and my husband didn't know anything about that until he married me, which was true. But the poor bloke, when I married him, I fully embraced it and went proper weird, as he would call it. He's like, oh my God, you're getting up to your witchy woo woo friends. And it's like, yes, but I fully
Love it.
embraced it. I just remember doing the story and having this photo shoot, and I was made to look, I had this fancy dress, had my hair done, and it appeared in a double page spread in the newspaper. And I was walking to school with the kids, and I dropped them off, and I was just like, oh my God. And I kept ping, ping, ping. I've seen you in the paper. I've seen you in the paper. And I'm like, can you read my tarot cards? I was like, what? So I think I think, like I said to you, the worst case scenario was that I was going to get stoned at the school gate. But actually what happened is people were like, can you do some Reiki on me? Can you do my cards? I read the cards too. Oh, I have an angel. Oh, and it's the people that you didn't expect as well. And it was just like, I was like, oh shit, I found my people. These are there. And just by showing up and sharing my story meant I then started to attract more people into my space who were like me. So I stopped
Yeah.
being normal and just showing up as
Mm.
that crazy woman who reads tarot cards.
Uh,
Sorry.
I love
We've
that so much.
Oh my gosh. We both talk about like the woo woo, and I know we've got some other mutual friends. I think we had beautiful Bay Marie on last week, where she's like, "Yeah, we're making the woo woo normal. Like, even though it feels like
Mm,
it's the outcast, that there's something that is strangely different. People, I feel people crave that part of themselves that has been suppressed for so long. And
Yeah.
like, what beautiful permission pieces we all are to show how you can be all of yourself. You can still be the logical and get this done and get this done and get this done and do the things, but you can also be in the magic and in the craziness, and and really embrace that. Oh, I love all of that.
mm.
And I bleeded
I
too.
had a really Yeah, I had a really interesting situation where I moved away a couple of years ago to teach in a different area, remote area, and we get put into teaching housing and stuff like that. And I hadn't actually met any of my roommates, so there was three, and they'd all come home one day, and I was in my room, doing my witchy stuff, and I'm like, oh, how are they going to accept me? Like, you know, are they going to think that I'm, crazy witch lover or something like that and want me out of the house? And I'm sitting there and I'm cleansing myself with my Palo Santo, and it's like, whoa. And next thing I hear this, oh, what's that smell? Oh, there's gas. There's something burning. And I've come out to two of them up on the kitchen bench smelling the air vents and everything. Like, I'm like, it's just me. It's just some cleansing stuff, I'm sorry. And they're like, oh, well, I thought there was a leak. And that was them meeting me for the very first time. And they're like, oh, so do you do all this stuff? And it was the exact same thing. It's like, can you do a reading for us? We've got some friends at school that want to come around. And, I ended up having their friends come around to get readings and things like that. Completely shocked them and had one of them in tears running away going, no, I don't want that to be true. I was sitting there. What her reading was actually that her ex-boyfriend was going to come back. And she's like, no, 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 I ended it. And it's like, but you still care for him, correct? And she's like, yes. And within 5 seconds, ping, he sent her a message. And it was just like, oh, and she's run outside and she's crying. And we're like, oh, did I do that? Like, I completely went, oh, I hope I haven't given the wrong information. And she's like, look, he just texted me. I haven't heard from him in 2 years. And craziness. But that was my very first experience meeting like three people that had never ever seen any of this type of thing before, and it was like, okay, well, if that's the worst that can be, then it was absolutely amazing. Such a
Yeah.
such
Yeah.
a cool. I love that.
It's
I
it's
love
so
those
cool.
stories.
Oh, and it's interesting when we start bringing that into places that are unexpected, actually how curious people are. Like,
Mm,
I remember bringing tarot cards into like my year seven home group where we would mark things, and we normally, being in a Catholic setting, we would do prayer, but we would also have meditation. I was like, I'm just going to bring my cards in, and the kids love it. Like, they would be curious, and what's that mean, what's that mean, and like, either the colors or the information. And some of them would be really curious about it, and some of them like, can I take a photo of that? Like, yeah, you can take a photo, that meaning's for you. And some would be like, I don't understand. Like, that's okay. But when I started bringing it into the classroom, or even like as some of them were coming in, I'd go, here, pick a card for the days. They, it just sparked something within them. And this is that beauty about curiosity, and
Mm.
why I love oracle cards. Like, it just sparks something. And
still.
whether it's that, or a game, or art piece of art, or whatever, it's like when I started bringing that in, a lot of those, because I was in an all girls school, many of them were just like, I could see the cogs turning a little bit deeper, going, this relates to like my life, or my mom's just gone through this. And it would just crack open just a little bit more about how they were feeling, and
Mm.
just getting them to question like the symbolism and things, and like they're or like something with a butterfly. Oh my God, I love butterflies. What does that mean? And it's just, I know our children, I know all of us are really passionate about, you know, the future as well. I think we've all got girls too. and like being able to lead in this way of owning all of ourselves, to be able to speak visibly about it and not be ashamed. And what have you noticed, Sarah, like, as you know, when you said you got married, you just fully embraced it, your husband's like, okay, loving you for it, and your girls growing up after, you know, I suppose going through some of that trauma, those pieces of remembrance, you know, coming back to remembering who you are, they've gotten to witness you in all of the magic and all of the brilliance and creativity, and also the hard bits. What do you think, you know, you've noticed within them that has been, I suppose, really powerful as a mum in you embracing all of yourself?
Oh, they're my biggest teachers. That's probably
Mm.
the, I guess, the thing that has really struck me, in that any stories that I dare tell myself that aren't supposed to be here anymore, they will magnify it. they're like they're like little mirrors, you know. Um, I had, I mean, my eldest is dealing with, I mean, women deal with this anyway, right? And this is what's led me to kind of creating my own girls group over here, around like trying to not beat the system, because like we you know, you sit in circle and you hear women's stories, and a lot of those stories are deep seated in what happened in childhood,
Yeah.
and that's kind of what I'm facing, feeling, dealing with at the moment. And it's led me to want to create a safe space for girls to hear, or to be heard, to be seen, to be heard, to
Mm.
be witnessed, not talked at, you know. And with my eldest, she's moving through some of the things with friendships that I wish I'd had some of the guidance that, like, she's probably getting too much guidance. But do you know what I mean? I wish maybe someone had said some of the things that she's being shared, some of the tools that my husband brings, some really great grounded advice in, you know, standing in your sovereign power and not taking, you know, not taking, well, that no is a full sentence, and teaching girls that you don't have to do things that you don't want to do. You know, the basic things that struggled with, certainly through my 20s and 30s. Was very much a people pleaser and a good girl. And if we can teach and teach our young girls, or our the next generations, to just to not take that, then hopefully they're not going to be sitting
Mm.
in circle in their 40s talking about, you know, being told that they were unworthy, or felt unworthy, or unseen. And I think that's certainly something that comes up in the stories that we tell ourselves, the stories that we carry, and a lot of the work that I do. So, like, I'm not just a person that gets PR coverage, it's about unraveling those stories that hold us back. And a lot of them stem from different aspects of our childhood or our journey as into adulthood. So they are, as I said, they're my biggest teachers. My youngest is one, like, she will not do anything she doesn't want to do. And I just sit there and go, I wish I was like you. God, like, you've got some front. And I, you know, I'm the one she challenges, but
My
I
youngest is
just,
the same.
I'm, yeah, it's just amazing to witness, because if I'd behaved or said or been in that, I'd never felt like I could do that growing up.
Mm.
And you know, my eldest is a little bit more sensitive because she's the eldest, and I think that's often what happens with the eldest girl. You know, you're the one that's trailblazing, but then there's always this, like, who am I looking
Mm.
to thing going on. Whereas my youngest is like Scrappy Doo, you know, just doesn't.
Mm.
So yeah, and they're both versions of me, right? I think, and I think that's also lovely.
Hmm.
Mm.
I love that.
So yeah,
It
I'm not sure
sounded like you were
you even
describing my
answered your
children then.
question.
Definitely. It is
Oh,
it is definitely for children to do this. It's
yeah.
it's the same thing. That was my biggest awakening, is like, why wasn't there anyone there to teach me this when I was a kid? Why can't we stop this cycle of getting into our 40s, which, the midlife crisis is just your awakening, really, where you're going, there needs to be more to life. Like, I followed the rules of society. I did everything I was meant to do. I got my house. I got my family. I'm married, blah, blah, blah. Why am I not happy? And it's that dream as a child that was stamped on, that's like, oh no, it's too much, it's impossible, or it doesn't happen for people like us, or those stories that are passed on to us from our parents and grandparents that keep us in this cycle of going, okay, well, no, I come from the gutters, I didn't have a great education, so therefore I'm not going to amount to anything. And that story that needs to be shed is what needs to be taught to children right now. It's take away the years and years of therapy they're going to need in their 30s and 40s and say, okay, how about we actually show you how to be your most authentic self today?
Mm,
That
yeah.
there is the power of all this work.
Yeah.
Mm.
And I love that we've gone down this path because I've shared this, I think, in a couple of different spaces as well. But Flea and I hosted a girls' circle last year. I feel like we had a lot of initiations last year, and it was that exact piece, like also working in the arts, working with teenagers. I would see these kids come to school feeling so like self-conscious, and there's like when you're in with a whole heap of teenage girls always looking in the mirror, and being in the drama dance classroom there's mirrors around, so they're always like fixing their hair, or they're looking at themselves, or it's like this self-reflection piece, or like you'll see them walk past and look at the mirror again and look at themselves, and they would still have these pieces of like, oh, I'm not pretty enough, I'm not good enough, or my friend's not going to accept me, or they're going to judge me for this. And it's such a hard age, and such a pivotal age group, developmental stage, and like these rites of passage of you know coming into womanhood, when we have our first bleed, our first menstrual cycle, our menarche, or menarche for some people. This is the framework for our sexual creative template into womanhood. And I know this, I know with both of you we've spoken about it, but if anyone that's listening in, like our womb space as women are such powerful portals, and like men and women, like children are born from the womb, male and female. And so this is how important this space is to like reconnect with and learn how to love and communicate with the body wisdom that comes online, the psychic gifts. And I found for me, really embracing my womb, my yoni, and grounding into that really activated a lot of the intuition and the gifts, so that I could anchor it into my body. I mean, that's a whole other tangent, but for our girls to really like imagine, like like you said, having these circles for them to break these cycles. Imagine if our girls like really knew how powerful they were when they had their periods, and like we're celebrating that, wow, this is what I can do if I know how to harness my energy. Being aware that that phase is a phase of deep rest, being aware that when they're in the ovulation phase, that's the best time to like action and do this and be creative, and noticing like in that wild woman phase before you come into the crone. I like to put the characters on it. It's from your maiden, your mother, the wise wild woman, and the crone. Like knowing that our hormones, like, so this whole week, my
Mm.
hormones and my emotions have been really heightened, and I get so fixated on stuff. And then I realized, oh, because my cycle has started today. I'm like, oh, that's why I was like super crazy working in the middle of the night, because like I've got to get this done because my emotions are super heightened, and being aware of those phases in your body, in your cycle, knowing that you're cyclical beings. I wish I knew that as a teenager. And I was like, why do our kids not know this? And like you, Sarah, I think we've lost Flea. I think she'll come back on. But like
Yeah,
you,
no.
yeah, I believe that we should be teaching this knowledge and this wisdom to our children, passing it on. So but they don't have to repeat the things we have had to do, you know.
Well, there's such a negative, I mean, in the mainstream media, there is such a negative press around having your menstrual cycle. You know, you look at the advertising, you look at when people were talking about it, and, you know, just seeing what's being transmitted out there around, you know, the curse. I mean, there are girls that are coming online a lot earlier than they ever used to, and they need support and nurturing through that. And I know that there are lots of children that, when they have done that, the denial, the shame, the embarrassment, because they're not being fully supported, I think that in itself is quite damaging. But I mean, good news, it doesn't take much to kind of, when they're young, to reprogram that, to change that before it gets too late, you know. And I think that's another thing, is like teaching them how to let go of stuff a lot quicker. And it's helping me let go of things a lot quicker. I used to like get cross for months when I was in my 20s. I'd like carry a grudge with myself for about a week. You know, I wouldn't speak to somebody because they'd annoyed me for a week or whatever. And I feel like there's definitely a shift occurring in that my kids we move through things really quickly because we allow the emotion to come through us. And I think
Yeah.
even just teaching people that, you know,
Mm.
and humor, and bringing in, you know, things don't have to be so serious. We can just laugh it off. It is okay to just lighten up a bit.
Yeah. Flea and I had moments of crying and laughing yesterday. We would be like laughing, and then it's like, no, I need to cry. Like, I really need to cry, and
I know I
just
can't hear.
that feeling, like, let your emotions fully be felt and let them out, and please come back right in time because the beautiful tech kicked her out. She's hosting it.
Oh.
But yeah, those pieces of emotion I think are
I
really
have
important. Yeah, go for it, Flea.
I don't know if you can hear me. I can't hear anyone, but I do have to say I do love this platform and the fact that I disappeared as the host and it kept running. So yay, Vimeo. I can't hear
Yeah.
though, but that's fine.
Oh, okay. She can see our mouths moving. That was like me earlier. I jumped on. Yeah, okay. Oh, she can. Oh, poor thing. But yeah, this piece around like, oh, we're going with the flow as well, but like acknowledging where we're at, feeling it through, laughing through it like she is now, because you know when tech things happen and you go offline, geez, your anxiety. I know mine. I'm like, what's going on? Just breathe through it, and it just activates so many things. So if we can take that deep breath and breathe and laugh, and like that's like a motto for life, right? And so yeah, Lee's agreeing. And so Sarah, are there any other final thoughts or messages that you'd love to share?
Do you know what? No, I haven't got anything else. I feel like I've shared quite a lot of different stories for a
Mm,
change, which has been really lovely actually. And yeah, just I guess moving I guess the thing is like I think I'm in this process of transformation again, and I think that
Mm.
it's about embracing when we move through these spaces of transformation. It's about embracing them and leaning hard into them and trusting. And I'm definitely being called into that space right now. And it's like wild, but I'm loving that I'm doing it with women that I've connected that are in similar situations, that we're all feeling it. And I think that's the other thing. It's like it's so important to communicate with each other, like where you're at, because that's where
Mm.
we can become our own worst enemies and create a prison for ourselves. So I think the more that we share our stories and how things are evolving, I think this is I feel like we've moved out of martyrdom and victimhood. I feel like we're all coming from this place of this is how it is. I'm not letting it define me or swallow me. I'm actually presencing how I'm feeling and doing something about it. And I think that's the difference. I've noticed a shift around people now. They're not just kind of, oh, poor me. It, we don't want
Mm.
to be like that anymore. We want to. I feel like that's definitely a shift in whether that's because of the people that I'm surrounded by, but I'm definitely seeing more people wanting to be more conscious in their choices and being more connected. And the stories, I mean, God, we were taught that you know the baby Jesus was born out of immaculate conception and an angel arrived, and I just find it fascinating that we swallow that story and we swallow Santa Claus, and there's all these other stories of mystical people. And it's like, but if you start talking about angels and fairies to people, they're like, wow. It's like, it's okay if we agree
Mm.
with these ones. But I feel like magic is everywhere. Like the magic is everywhere.
Oh,
You
I
just have
love
to
that.
look for it.
Yeah. And that magic and being able to fall in love with it, which is what your topic is about in the summit. So beautiful Sarah's on day 3 of our Seeking Sovereign Soul Summit, which is starting tomorrow. And she's on here in Australia on the 26th of April from 7 to 8 p.m. But it's morning for you in the UK. And her session is called Fall in Love with Your Story. Speak your truth from a place of power. And so I know we've just had a beautiful glimpse, a glimmer pathfinder you into your beautiful story here. Glimmer Pathfinder is Sarah's oracle card name, which
I
is
love it.
beautiful. And just being able to play with
Mm.
those worlds. So Flea, what was that last card that you pulled up before we finish up today?
So it was the new day and the new beginnings and the reunion of souls, but that all leads to abundance. And as Sarah, you were saying, more people are becoming aware, more people are becoming conscious and taking that. And it's when we are aware, that consciousness, that abundance, not just in finances, but in connections, in communication, in expression, in who we truly are, that gets to be seen. And when we get to be seen, you can't act in a place of hate. You can't, it's impossible to then, be mean to somebody else and to judge when you're coming from this place of understanding. And that there to me is more abundant than any financial gains we can get. It's that true connection and that true just allowance of yourself and your soul. It is that return to soul that first card was. It's
Mm.
so beautiful.
Oh, so
Love that.
beautiful. Thank you, Flea. Oh, tying everything together. And so, Sarah, if people are watching this and want to connect with you, how can they find you?
I have a website, so it's www.indigosoulpr.com, or you can find me on Instagram. That's Sarah Lloyd _is PR. So thank you so
Oh,
much for having me. It's been a real pleasure.
beautiful. Oh, thank you, Sarah. And we'll look forward to
I hope I
chatting.
spelled
Oh,
We'll
Indigo
double
Soul
check.
PR. Yeah,
it.
.com.
Beautiful.
That's perfect.
Amazing. And we'll see you soon anyway. You're on a few panels and we'll see you in the summit. And folks, if you're listening in, $5 tickets, everybody, get in quick. The VIPs are 50% off still, and it's under $50 worth. You get 6 months access to not only this year's content, but last year's. There are so many beautiful gifts that our speakers have put together for the VIPs. You get exclusive access to amazing deals, like our Oracle card that we just pre-launched this year. All 3 of us are in it. It is spectacular because it's inspired by real people, and there's been a lot of beautiful effort. I just paid for it to go to print last night. So it's gonna be ready by Friday.
Beautiful.
And yeah, we'll be able to send those out to anyone that's pre-ordered and to our speakers, and we get to have that um, in our toolkit to come back into those meanings and to the messages, not only from the speakers. But the cool thing is, when you get our e-handbook, the handbook that comes with it, we're saving the trees, but it's going to direct you into the meanings. But also, you can click on the hyperlink and go meet Sarah, or go and find her online and connect if you love the meaning. And I think that's really special and unique that I haven't seen in Oracle cards before. I'm sure there might be, but I haven't seen them. So we're like, let's do this. So it's
I
very
love it.
cool.
Very, very
Beautiful.
cool.
Ah,
So
yay, more cool things.
Yeah.
Oh, well, thank you everybody for joining us, and we'll see you all soon. Bye.